someone write, someone else than Clemens write whether they are seeing anything? I can see, you can hear. Okay, that's great. Okay, perfect. Great. Now, thank you very much, and sorry for the mix-up, but now I think we're ready to go. Great, thank you very much for joining this afternoon time in Germany. I think you're spread around the world, so thanks for coming in at your time. My name is Alexandra. I'm doing this workshop and guiding you through the topic of today. And I'm happy to introduce you to the topic, as I said, getting your business plan ready. From the organizational sides, we will take about 40 to 45 minutes to go through the context, and then at the end we will have time to answer some of your questions that you can write in the chat. There's a question from Clemens. Do you get the slides later? Yes, you do. It's also being recorded, and the Empowering People Network will provide you the slides as well as the recording later on. So, yes. As you might have seen, this is part of a series. So there have been 2 webinars before. I don't know if some of you joined them or not. It doesn't matter because they're all separate. But in case you have, you might be familiar with the very beginning that I'm going to talk about. Of course, the main part will be different. So today's webinar. Before we start, let me give you a short overview of what we're going to do today. I will start with just a brief introduction of the Empowering People Network, Phase, that's the organization I'm working for, and a brief definition of what we mean when we talk about business plan. We will then dive into the main part, discussing why you need a business plan, what it usually contains, also in focus of the social business instead of a normal business. And I brought some practical examples of slides and well, basically designs that I find useful for different topics, and go with you through some examples and some do's and don'ts that might be helpful for you. In the end, we will just sum up short key learnings and what we found out during the course, and some outlook for the prospective workshop. Now, the Empowering People Network is probably familiar to some of you because they are the ones that the reason why we can actually do all this. The Empowering People Network is done or operated as part of the Siemens Stiftung, Siemens Foundation, and they basically have 5 main fields that they're working in order to provide social entrepreneurs such as you opportunities to improve their businesses, to learn something, to get better and get expertise, and also a lot of network events and knowledge transfer within this network community. You might have seen the website that they're using to provide all these documents. I think it's very helpful. So if you don't know it, it's a great chance to improve your skills. The organization that I'm working for is called Phase. That's the abbreviation for Financing Agency for Entrepreneurship. We're located in Germany, in Munich and Düsseldorf, and we're a 100% Ashoka subsidiary company. Ashoka is the biggest network of social entrepreneurs and is all over the world working on improving the conditions of entrepreneurs and bringing them together with experts and pro bono partners, and using basically all of their power to well, help social entrepreneurs to get out there in the world and spread their ideas and their working know-how. The idea of the Ashoka network is that they look for people who actually drive change. So the change makers are the ones that they want to work with because they believe that these people, such as you, are needed in order to drive change in the whole world, and it needs to happen in different countries. So that's why they're really working as a network spread all over the world. For Phase, as a daughter company, we focus on the financial part of social entrepreneurship and financing activities. So we basically operate between the 2 worlds of the social organizations and the business world, which is usually the investors that want to use impact investments to help the social entrepreneurs. So we work with these two worlds and bring them together by providing investment opportunities to impact investors, who then basically support the social entrepreneurs financially and also with their knowledge in order to make them grow, help them scale, or just simply improve their own operations. So much to these organizations. And now we just dive into the topic that we will discuss today. The topic is business planning. You probably know many definitions of a business plan, and I thought for a quick start, it's just helpful to get a baseline of what we're talking about today. As you can see here, there's a longer description taken from Investopedia and a short one at the very bottom of the page. I think the main buzzwords that are really necessary to describe what business planning means and what we will look at when we say we look at a business plan are threefold. The one is that it's actually a document. So disregarding of what you will do when you do a business plan, at the end it will be some kind of document. So it definitely has the part of writing something down and having something at the end that you hold in your hands. Second part definitely refers to the question of when you provided a business plan, and that is certainly the phase when you found a company, either in its very early phase or when you change it or adapt it, and somehow in this evolving part need to have a new baseline and a new vision, and thus use the business plan to get focused again. The third part is what was already kind of in the second answer. What it is a description of your business idea on the one hand, and also how you put it in practice. So we will go into details what that actually means in terms of structure, but you already know that it entails to some content what your idea is, how you put it in practice, and who is doing it. These are now the pillars, I would say, that we will work on. Okay, so you might remember that if you have visited the previous webinars. I want to use the slide to a little bit get into a frame of when the question of writing a business plan is actually relevant for you. And now I use this just brief example of imagining that you at one point in your career as a social entrepreneur are probably asking yourselves what you need in terms of prerequisites when you want to approach investors. And if you put it onto the path of an entrepreneur, I would say very broadly that in certain regards, you definitely have to have an idea. You definitely have to have some kind of vision where you want to go with that idea. So it has to be something that you put some thought into it, let's say it that way. Usually you have kind of tested the idea, or at least in minimal regards had the opportunity to go out in the market. And you also need to have some kind of business model, so to say. It's not just an idea that gets some donations or maybe not. So it needs to have some kind of stability, because otherwise it will be quite difficult for you to build up a longer lasting project here. And if you have all that and know you want to proceed and know you want to go ahead with your business, then you are basically at the point where you have to sort out your ideas. You want to have something to hold in your hands and also to approach investors. And that's the point where you say, okay, a business plan might actually be quite helpful at this stage. As you might have experienced, there's a very, vivid discussion, I would say, whether a business plan should actually be written or not. That question is quite big and widely discussed, and that's actually something that just evolved the past years, because I would say a couple of years ago it was pretty clear that you need a business plan. There was no question around, and full stop. By now, things have changed a little bit, and there are quite some voices warning that a business plan is not the way to go. And I want to use just this slide to bring up the most relevant points I feel that you hear in the discussion. Let's just quickly go through the main arguments of the supporters. And they say that basically the business plan, or the main reason why you should write a business plan, is that it brings relevant questions up that you might have not thought about earlier, and that in that context will be helpful for you to discuss them with yourself or with your team and actually come to conclusions that you only get when you go through in detail what you want to do with your business. So it is really, in their regard, an idea of sorting out your ideas and helping you to think everything through from the beginning to the end in a logical frame, which otherwise you would probably not be doing when you didn't have that outcome of a business plan set in front of you. The business plan is also supposed to serve you as a roadmap, so getting you to know, okay, what are my next steps, what are my priorities, and how to get on. And also, as an argument, serves as supporting the conversations with investors or with people you want to get money from, because that's at that point you will probably need to have something to hold in your hands to give them. On the other hand, there are the opponents who have also, I think, valid arguments in saying, for example, that in a startup world, as you probably will have experienced yourself, things are changing so quickly that writing a plan somehow is not worthwhile, because the next day it might already be changing, and it's nothing that you can actually hold on to. It's also a valid argument, I think, that the time that you spend on writing the business plan, which is usually a lot, saying between 2 weeks and 2 months or even longer, you can spend actually much better, because there are probably a lot of things you can do, and writing a business plan and sitting and having everything done properly is time that you can use somewhere else. Also, some people argue that a business plan somehow restricts you in your ideas and creativity, because you put something down that you want to use as a guideline, but if you feel like you should change something, then a business plan, which is a written document and somehow provided by you, makes you feel that you can't break out of it. So that's something that critics argue. There are many more arguments on both sides, I think, and many of them on both sides are very valid. And it's certainly, I think, one of the major questions on how much time you spend or have to spend on a business plan, because that's the point that for most of you who have to write a business plan or want to write one is something they are just don't have a lot of from. So time is always a limited good. But as I put it out here, and I think that's also a very fair argument for you and for today's session, is that skeptics and fans of business plans definitely agree in one point. And that point is that even if you feel like the arguments on the no to business plan side are more favorable, or that's what you believe in, it is definitely the case that in most of the cases, if you approach investors, and that can be any private person, as a business angel or a venture capitalist or a bank, any of them will definitely ask you to provide a document, and that document should be coherent, it should be clear, it should contain certain things that just need to be in there, and that is basically a business plan, no matter how you put it, and no matter how long or short it is basically this idea of a business plan. So if you say you need money from other people than your family, you will probably at one point need to write a business plan. I hope that's not surprising and not bad news to anyone, but we will look at some different versions of how this can be. Because that's the good news, a business plan is not a business plan. It can have various forms, and depending on your needs, your time, and also your expertise, you can use very different forms, and I just put up here the four most common that we can quickly go through. Number 1 and 2 are the more traditional ones, I would say. The first is the traditional text-based, so basically a Word document or a PDF in the end. It's very straightforward, very organized, as you've seen many documents probably of ideas. The positive parts of it is that it can be very detailed, so you can write everything that you want basically in very elaborated manner, which might be helpful if you have a complex product and need to take some words to explain it. It gives you the possibility to provide a context around it, so you can use the chapters and the chapters in between to say, okay, this is actually how A relates to B, and it's important to know that this is also part of our idea, because it's a maybe complex product or service that you're offering, and this format just gives you opportunity to write whatever is needed at a certain point. Negative parts of it might be that it's quite rigid, so you have this format and you can't really swap between the chapters. You need to be quite formal and restricted in what chapters and spaces you have to offer. You can't really jump in between. And also probably if you make changes, then it's something where you have to go through the whole document, and it might be more difficult to change such a document, although it's still possible. Number 2 is the PowerPoint presentation. That I think sometimes is more appealing than a text-based document, because you have the opportunity to, or better opportunity to involve more graphs, more visual pictures, something a little different than if you use a Word context. So this room for creativity, I think, sometimes is easier if you want to transmit certain ideas. On the other hand, which is more difficult, is that you need to have some knowledge how you use it. So PowerPoint is something that can look very nice, but it also can look very shabby if you don't know the right tools, or if you don't use it in the right way. So that is something where you either need to have the knowledge, or you have to have someone who helps you or gives you an introduction and then be able to use it. Sometimes it's also a little more tricky because it's more difficult to include a lot of details. The boxes should usually not be super filled with information, because that's nothing that people find appealing in such a presentation. It needs to be more crisp and more brought to the point. So sometimes it might be more difficult for you if you use just a PowerPoint. The business model canvas, as the number 3, is fairly young in comparison to the other styles, and has been developed by Alexander Osterwalder in 2008 was the first time he brought it up. And it's basically, if you don't know it, it's worthwhile looking into it, because it's especially something that you can use for yourself in ordering your idea. The idea is that you basically summarize your entire idea and the context around this one page. So the different chapters that you can see here are actually the chapters or building blocks that you use. And as you can see already on the picture, it's quite easy to get the interrelations between the different aspects and take the step back and look at the whole thing and see or identify maybe much easier on where potential difficulties are, and what you need to think about that hasn't been so clear to you. It is very flexible, so I think that's one of the best methods that you can use if you say you're still developing your business, or you have to evolve it fairly often, so that can be changed quite quickly and easily. The 4th I brought up as an idea of something that's not so common, but might be good for you if you say you have a product that is more appealing to people that are right brain, so rather the creative part is being addressed, because that is really basically build up of pictures or images and tells you a story about or the way of the business in terms of a storyline that is just brought up by different images that you put together. So it's quite different than the other styles, not to be recommended for complex ideas, for technical ideas, so all of that. is probably not the right place to use it, but for example, for creative projects or for maybe also for youth projects, so something that's where you're talking to people that find the style appealing, it might be something that you find interesting. Okay, so if we look at the more traditional parts of a business plan or styles, how do I actually structure it? What needs to be in there? How does it look like? There are you see very different contexts or also parts of business plans. So don't be confused if you have seen anything else or used anything else. It can be totally fine. I put up this structure and the context because I thought this is the one that's most common and that you see a lot. But as I said, it can change a little, or it can be a little different. So don't be surprised here. Okay, I've put up some basic parts and some more complex. So please excuse. I just wanted to make the full picture. So it's clear that you have to start with some kind of cover page, which comprises definitely your company name, the year, and the title. I will also have some examples in the next pages, so you will see at some point what I mean by that. Then usually you should have at the second page an executive summary, which summarizes all the relevant information on just one page. So that's the page that you show in the beginning, or that the reader reads in the beginning to get a whole idea of the big picture, and then can go into details in the next steps. And the third page should be the table of content or agenda, where you put up the different chapters that are following, and should be very comprehensive and clear on what chapter is following, and then people can actually follow up on what is coming, and it's easier for them to see the headlines and know what you're talking about. The topic social environmental issue is different to, I would say, normal business plans, because that's the difference to you social entrepreneurs, and definitely the catchphrase in the beginning. For most of you, the main drive or the reason why you do your business is that you identified some kind of social or environmental problem that you know it has to be solved and that you want to help being solved. So this is actually your starting point to say, what is the problem? Why do I know, or why do I see that's a problem? And also underline this with hopefully very concrete figures, and saying 12,000 people are being addressed by this problem. This percentage of people has had a problem with that. So make it very clear and concrete, so people know that you know what you're talking about, and that is actually something that is very clear and not just fuzzy words around of something that is maybe a problem. So that's your starting point. You then can go over right directly to the solution. So what is the problem that, or how are you solving the problem, and what is it that you do in order to offer a solution? The third part can be the business model. So that is basically answering the question how you do it. That usually involves, if you basically sell a product, it sells. This chapter says how you sell a product. So what the channel that you're using, and are you selling it directly to the people, or are you using distributors? What is the price? Are there different prices for different people or groups of people? So all of this comes in the business model. The business model can also comprise, if you have something that you want to talk about in this context, is the impact that you're reaching with it. So if you are able to put down a figure at the number of people that you're addressing, at the number of hectares that you're being able to green up, or anything that can be measured, or that you achieve with your business in terms of social impact, you can put in here, and it's very helpful if you put that also as a relevant part in your business plan, the social aims that you're following and the solutions that you're providing for that. The proof of concept is a short chapter, or should be a short chapter, on what you have achieved so far. That means that you write in how many like what your research has provided you, whether you have sold any products yet, whether you have made any revenues yet. So everything that you've done by now should be in there, because that tells people where you are, the efforts and also the achievements that you've made, and know that you're already on the way and not just started with your idea basically yesterday. So that's helpful for you. The market ideas should be something on the market size. It should contain something that gives people an idea of how big the market and how big it is and how it grows, so they know in what context your company is working. And it usually contains something on the competitors, whether you have any, what they're doing, what you're doing better than them. And that can, for example, be a table where there's the different competitors and in some areas depicted, and you compare yourself to them, and hopefully come at the point that you have points where you are much better than them. The next part is the team, which should definitely be in there, telling about you and your team, what you have done, and who is basically the driving idea behind it. I will also come to that later again. And the last part, the financials. I will also have a slide on that, showing some figures that are important, and giving the investor some idea of where you stand financially, what you're looking for, and what you need the money for. You should have some kind of final slide. There doesn't need to be anything on it, just a thank you maybe, or your address or contact details at the end are always very helpful to have, so people know where to find you. And if you have, you can provide also a backup. So one slide, a backup slide, titles, and then afterwards some kind of screenshots, product descriptions, anything that you find useful to look through, but not worthwhile putting in the first part of the presentation, because it might just get too long if you put it up there. So do differentiate between things that are very necessary to know, and that people, if you look at it, there are some questions that people will ask you, because these are the questions that you usually hear when you tell someone about your story, and all of that should be answered in the main part. Everything that might be questioned by people who are either experts in the business or are very well detailed in what they do, they might want to have some information that's interesting for them, but not for everybody. So these are the parts that can very good be in the backup, because then they're there, but they're not taking not too much space in the first part. Yeah, as you see here on the right side, that structure as an idea is very helpful for PowerPoint and for Word. So you can use it for both of these formats. And as I said, make sure to provide some information on the commercial, but also on the social side. And sometimes you will have the opportunity that you can have a long list, so you can even take the social impact as an own chapter, or you can take more chapters in if there's something that you want to be talking about specifically. But of course, you have always the opportunity also to shorten it up and to combine some of the chapters in order to make the agenda a little bit shorter if you need it. But making it shorter means that the content is in some of the chapters with another title, but not the version that you just don't put it in there, because everything that is here on the slide somehow needs to be addressed, because these questions will definitely be asked, and that's something that you want to make sure you have in your documents. Okay. Now, as promised, I brought some examples, and we'll just go through with you. Some of them, so it's not, the focus is not on the content here, but not the content, but more on the visual demonstration, because I feel like sometimes it's, well, you need some idea, or ideas are helpful to know how you can structure these things. Not so much for the first, this page, because this is quite, well, straightforward and very clear. The others might be more helpful for you. Yeah, but what I wanted to show you here is just here what I said about the business plan title, something that it definitely needs to contain the name, the year, and the contact details. And also here, I thought I like the example because you can see that it's about being professional and having everything that you need, but also this picture here, even though some of you might not even understand because it's German, it shows you that there is still room for some creativity. So whatever suits to your example and to help underline your case, whether it's a citation or whether it's an image or anything that's like really helpful to bring over your point, you can include these things. So it doesn't need to be very super formal with no creativity in there. There can be creativity and that's actually helpful, but it should be fitting to the ideas you want to show, and also it should be analyzed on whom you're addressing. So if you're talking to a bank, you should probably be a little more strict than if you're talking to a private business angel or even a VC company, because they also look for someone who's doing a little twist. The agenda, again, is very easy, straightforward, so nothing spectacular, but you can use this kind of highlighting to just show in which chapter you are, have this page at the very beginning of each chapter, and you will make it people much easier to follow through and to know in what chapter you are, what you can expect to read right now, and so on. So probably very common to most of you, but I still wanted to address it here. The executive summary. That's something that you probably have heard. There are also very different ways of doing it, and you can also, I've seen a slide full of text, so it can look very differently. I picked this example because I thought it's quite well to read, and it brings you, again, on the left side here, the chapters that you will look at. So you provide the reader some baseline and some structure on what will follow. And then for each of the chapters, you have the main buzzwords that are relevant for your presentation and for your company. So I think it's very, very clear, very easy to see, and you can yourself choose what content and what of your points are also critical that you want to put them in the beginning. There's also a bigger argumentation of people asking when to write the executive summary. Some people say, well, you need to write it in the beginning because that's the start and everything follows and it's very clear. A lot of people, including me, argue that it's always much easier if you write it at the end, because by then you have written very detailed about all of these things and will see much clearer what the main parts are and what you want to put in the very first page. Also, some midway in between that people do is to write it in the beginning as good as you can, then put it at the side, and then take it as the very, very last step up again, look through and see whether that's still something that you would support, or whether you, by now, I've seen that some points might actually be more important than you thought. Okay, now I have to be a little quicker, I think, looking at the time. This is the one example slide for a proof of concept, which is also a lot of information. If you think about, okay, what are the things I want to tell? How can I put that into a nice design? I think that's a nice example because it's very clear, very crisp. Now here the 6 main points that they have achieved, showing very good where they are, what KPIs, what are key performance indicators they chose. Some of them might also be helpful for you. Maybe you have some others, but that's up to you. So don't hang up on the terms of the core teams or local representatives. That's exchangeable. It's just something that I think is very clear and when you want to show and talk about your proof of concept. This example I actually took from Volunteer World. It's a very nice company, also a young company sitting in Germany, social entrepreneurs. And I liked a lot that they, on the one hand, use the voice of their customers they're working with. Both they're working with volunteers and social organizations. So I think it's very nice that they actually put in the citations of the ones that they're working with. And also, I think visually, it's very nice to see how you can use in a good style pictures without being overpaced or putting up too much attention to the pictures. It's a good mixture between context and also a visual attractive documentation of what they're doing and what positive aspects are with their work. As promised, I also said I bring something for the team slide. This is an example where you could put in your pictures of your team and just a brief description of each of your abilities and the experience that you have. I think it's very important that you're clear that your team's experience and how your team interacts and is set up is, for most investors, one of the main reasons why they invest in you. So they will look at the idea, but they will definitely look at least as much on your team and look at how you perform personally, of course also business-wise, but how you are as a person and how your team is set up and whether they believe that you as a group can do everything that you achieved or plan to do and put out in this plan to do. So make sure that you bring up good points, relevant points. So don't bring up anything that's not needed for this business. So if you have learned something that is very nice that you learned it, but it doesn't have any context with this, I would think about putting it up. Yeah, rather focus on whatever qualifications you have that will be relevant to the investor and you bringing up that business. Also, it's nice to include, depending on your team, if you have a bigger team, it's nice to include a group picture because it tells that you are already a bigger group and that you have some group spirit and that you care about it. And it's nice to include that, but make sure that for the information that are listed up here, the qualifications only limited to the leader team or the group of people that are leading the company, because no one wants to read bios about every 50 team members that might be in your group. So make sure you have a good level of information on the most relevant people and maybe a little bit of showing that you're a great team on a higher level. Also, I liked here in the bottom that you show your supporters and partners that you're working with. That gives you some more credibility, and if you have achieved any kind of grants or donations or any prizes, that's something that you can, for example, put up on such a page. Can also be the next page if there's if this is too full. But in this context of team, that's a good place to also talk about your supporters, partners, anyone who's in your network. The financials should really be very straightforward and easy to understand. So these are the main parts. When I get financial, I'm always annoyed when it's so complicated that you can't read it, and it's not a sign of being incredibly intelligent if you put up financials in a way that people who are used to reading it can't understand it. It just makes it more complex and complicated for everyone and will get you to receive probably a lot of questions. So don't try to be overruling it and just focus on the most important parts. This, as you can see, it doesn't look nice, but financial slides never look nice, so that's okay. And it's really just splitting up revenues in the first line. Then here they differentiate between 3 different parts, revenue streams. So they have 3 offerings that they provide, and each of them has, so the one has started already, the others are being started later on. And you can see that it's very easy to comprehend where the revenues are coming from, how they sum up. The costs, again, differentiated between personnel and material cost. That can be a little more detailed if you need to have, but it's most often not very necessary. And then an EBIT, and that's it. And it's at one point they will ask for more financials and more details, and that's fine. But for the presentation, at least for the PowerPoint, it doesn't need to be very detailed. If you have a Word business plan, You can put in more details because that's something where people can see, like page-wise, they can go into more detail, and it will be more common to do that. But in presentations and in Excel, PowerPoint, it's don't be too nitty-gritty and show very much details because it won't be worth it. Oh, and also 2 points that are very often being missed. Don't forget the units. So make sure this is clear and without any units, but make sure that you have at one point set out the units, because otherwise it's always complicated to understand. And I think what can be improved in this table is, because that's a business plan from 2016, I think they could have included also that these are actuals, because they have been already revenues that have been made in the past, and that these are planned figures. So that's a differentiation that you can use in your presentation. Now, this is a summary of basically some common mistakes when preparing a business plan, differentiated between the style and the content. Most of them will probably be well known by you. I will just put out some words here, and you can pick the ones that may be helpful for you. Although there are also, if you Google do's and don'ts in business plans, there are a lot of lists, trust me. And I know there's a lot of readings on that as well, so I don't want to stress it too long here. But definitely make sure that you have, style-wise, a coherent language. So don't change between styles, and if you if the chapters are written by different people, which might happen because in your group there is a specialist on marketing and another specialist on financials, that's fine, but go over at the end and see that the styles aren't too different, because if you read it, it might just be mixing you up, and it's very difficult. So that's something that you should keep in mind. Always proofread. It's very annoying for investors to see stupid mistakes that could have been avoided if someone had gone over and read it. That also includes page numbers. It's very annoying if page numbers are missing, because you will see if you present it or will go over it, you need the reference, and it just looks stupid if you forgot it. Also, the units that I had. No handwriting, because handwriting doesn't bring over that professionality that you want to bring if you ask someone for money. So you can do all your notes on handwriting, but somehow get access to a computer and make sure that you have this in a typed format. Also, in terms of style, avoid bright colors. So including colors is fine, but also limit it to a certain range that you use throughout the whole presentation, and don't mix between different ones. And use maximum of 2 fonts for your writing. So that can be helpful if you want to address different parts, but make sure that the style is very simple and coherent throughout this whole document. I think the use of visual elements can be very, very helpful, because it makes it easier to somehow part the whole text-based aspect and put something in that readers actually like and see a little differently. And that also comes back to the point of the creativity that I put out, which is totally worthwhile putting in, because people will like when you put some thoughts in it, and when it's not just a lot of text, but also some ideas that you put into that want to or can convey your message. Content-wise, I think if you use the chapters that I've been putting up, and make sure you include details and information here, that's the most important part, that nothing very important is missing. Other than that, I think the most important part, or second most important part, is that there needs to be some storyline. So if you go through, or if you are not the one that's an expert on that, get a friend or someone who can help you with that, to take the whole story and see whether it's one coherent storyline that you can tell. So starting with, that's a problem, that is the problem, this is how I'm solving it, this is what I've done. So make sure that the parts stick together with a good and coherent line, because otherwise, if you talk about different styles and different stuff, the reader, like, you won't pick it up. And it's very difficult to explain, but if you read a document and it didn't have a storyline, you will very quickly understand what it means and what, on the other hand, benefits it has if you give a good storyline at the end. Also, it's very okay to have weaknesses. So I've read business plans that say we are very good in this and that. In this field, we have tried this and that, and it hasn't worked, but we're now looking at this and that to do it differently, and we hope to have an answer by August 2017, whether it works or not. So this is fine, and this, I think, actually conveys that you're confident, because you don't have to go out there putting out unrealistic assumptions and saying that you're the one who knows it all. It's okay if you don't know something, and sometimes it's easier or better to address it by yourself than being asked and then have to answer in reaction to it. Okay, last pages. I'll make this quicker. Okay, this is the question of positive examples versus negative ones, and maybe you can read over it now or later on the page. It's here you can just see that what I just said about 100% customer satisfaction and the wording that they use is too exaggerated, and it's too much to really get a serious view on the company and to actually read this and believe in their idea. So what you want to do is not exaggerating. You want to have concrete figures. You want to think about what information are the most relevant and then put these into words, and not the fluffy language around that might be filling up space but don't actually help anyone understanding what you do and why you do it. So I will skip this because I want to show you in the next page, but I hope it's clear to understand what positive and negative parts I see here. Yeah, because I just want quickly to go over here. These documents that are somehow related to a business plan, and yet you might come across with. So you actually heard. Number one is the financial plan, which always usually comes in combination with the business plan. So either in the Word document, it can be part of it, or in the PowerPoint presentation, then it usually comes with it as an Excel sheet. And the financial plan should contain all the details to your financing that you don't put on the overview page. And it should include and start with your assumptions, mainly of the product or products that you're having, the prices, the growth rate of your sales that you're expecting in the next level, maybe a retention rate. So every assumption that you ever have about your company, it should be in there and used to be built up to build a plan, and at the end come out of the results that you're showing in your overview. So make sure that this is coherent. I think the most important part is the very first step when you set it up, because that's when you can put down all the baseline, and when you formulate it with different formulas, then you're always able to change it and put in something other values, and the whole thing will change according to your alterations. So that's something that you need to make sure in the very beginning, and then it's basically just an updating of your financials. The one-pager is very similar to the executive summary, and can just be used if you don't want to send the whole presentation to someone or give it, but just want to provide some kind of teaser, and you can use that just to put the main information in, put also your contact details on there, and then you can easily distribute it via email, send it out, because it's no harm to spread the word and to have someone just read over one page very quickly. The image film is something that has been coming up in the past years. And if you have the opportunity, I know it's quite expensive in comparison to the other documents, but it can be really helpful, because our experience is that people with reading, they understand the business, and they know about the financial, the market, all the figures, and the quantitative stuff. But an image film can convey much deeper and emotional messages. So if you have a topic that is important, or is very good to convey on an emotional and personal way, then an image film, or a smaller version of that, like good images, pictures, might actually be very helpful in addressing a different sort of investors, or also parts of investors that they are to fill in the second part of their rational brain. So the right brain is being filled with image films, or these kind of things. Just one word about the NDA, because it always comes up at a question. The NDA, maybe you've heard it, is a non-disclosure agreement. So what it means is that you sign with anybody that you provide your business plan to. You can basically sign an NDA, which states that they are obliged to keep this information to themselves, don't distribute it, and don't talk about it with anyone else, because that's your knowledge and your planning that you provide. From the idea, it's very useful and very good, because of course for you it's an opportunity, but also a risk to put out a business plan, because someone could, for example, steal your idea, or they could distribute it to your competitor, or they could do anything with it and you don't know it. So in practical, or in theoretical terms, it's quite useful if you say, okay, we write this NDA, and then I know that he's not going to give it away. In practical terms, it's a little different, because on the one hand, you can't keep them from sending or giving it to anyone else anyway. So you don't have it in your power that they're not going to breach it. The second part is that most often, or I have never seen any in this context, any situation where it was breached and actually the penalty was paid, because it doesn't really happen. So even if they provide it to someone else, you're the one who have to go after and by law follow that up, that they have provided it, that they have seen it, that they have have fraud to you. So you're the one who have to prove all this, and it probably takes up so much of your time and so much of your money that you're not going to follow it up. And the third part is that in the world of business angels and also of venture capitalists in social entrepreneurships, it's quite uncommon to distribute NDAs. So every once in a while, we are being asked to sign NDAs, and we can do it, but it's that kind of trust that you sometimes need to bring if you talk to people and if you open up, because at the end, nothing is really going to happen if it's breached. And I think you should rather be confident that what you're doing is good and is better than what other people are doing, and that the people you talk to are rather supporting you than doing anything else. So I think from my personal experience, you shouldn't really consist on any NDA, excluding technical issues, because that might be something different, because they have other reasons not to do it. Okay, just the key learnings. You can go over maybe while writing, or I will go over where you can write your questions, whether you have any, because I'm a little running over my time. I think we have some more minutes before, or like I think 10 minutes before the session will close automatically, but we can go a little bit over time. So if you have questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. Okay, then I will use the time just to go over the key learnings. So what do I need to consider? First of all, the main reasons to write it is yourself. making yourself clear what you want to have and what questions you might be follow up. Okay, I'll change the question. What about marketing? It is important for the business plan. Yeah, it is. Sorry, I will jump back. It is important, but it also depends on your business model, what you like, how your product is and how it's functioning. So sometimes it's really important, and sometimes I would say it's not a super focus. So in this structure here, I would include it in the business model and say, like in the storyline, how do I sell my product? So what price and who are the customers, and then in the next steps talk about the marketing and sales activities. So including everything, how you approach the different teams. Also a sales channel is also helpful if you say, okay, I have approached so many people, these are in my pipeline, and these are the ones that are already signed or bought a product. So this is everything that you can include. It looks very professional if you have a lot of details, as always. But depending on your business, whether you're a business to customer or business to business model, it's very different on how professional you are this way. So yes. Should I adjust the business plan depending on who I am raising funds from? That's a good question. I would say from the content, no, because you want to be coherent in what you say, and I think it's not advisable if you change between the addressers, because it mixes up you, and I think it also has some tendency to be blown up. I think it's fair if you include or if you highlight different parts for different investors. So if you approach a bank, I think the financial part should definitely be much more highlighted than if you approach, for example, a family friend or someone who you know would rather support you out of interest than out of financial objectives. So yes, I think that could, for example, if you have a presentation, work in the sense that you have a basic part that you use and then maybe change between the main part and the backup, some slides that you feel are more important or less important for this group of people. But the content in general, I wouldn't change. And that again is an example where you see that a presentation is a little bit easier to adjust, because you can simply take out that slide and put it at the end and put it back up again if you wanted. If you have a fixed Word document, then taking out some paragraphs and putting them somewhere else is always a little more difficult. You can do it and it's no problem, but it's more difficult to don't break up the storyline when you change parts in between, I think. Is the structure of the business plan similar to the structure of an elevator pitch? Which parts should be included in an elevator pitch? Yes, it is definitely similar. I think the biggest similarity is probably that the similarity, and what is even more important in an elevator pitch, is that you make sure that your thoughts, if you put them in a row, each of them is logically followed by the question that you're being asked. So it cannot be that you end up with the second part of your elevator pitch and the third part doesn't match to the one before. So you need to be very, very coherent in how you put that up. And the questions that you're asking, or the storyline that you tell, is very similar to the business plan that I would definitely start with the question, why am I doing this? So what's the reason and the background? And that can, in an elevator pitch, maybe be a combination of the social problem and also your personal experience or your personal motivation. So you can maybe put that in there. And then go over to your solution, how you want to do it, what your methods are, what you've achieved so far. The market part, I would say, can be a little bit shorter, because that's something where either you're detailed with figures or you leave it out. But saying there's a big market isn't necessarily very helpful information. So either concrete and one precise information or taking it out. The team, I would maybe also have a little bit smaller, depending on whether you have a great team of chemists and business people and astronauts, so like a really crazy bunch of people who are worthwhile being mentioned, then yes, if they are quite normal, so to say, background people, a bunch of business, a bunch of naturalists, and then scientists, maybe not as relevant information. And the financials, yes, but more in the style of the executive summary. So what revenue have I made? Where am I going? What investment can you expect? So very clear. Another question, is the business model canvas more a tool that you use internally and the word PowerPoint externally? I personally would say yes, because I think I've used the business model canvas myself, and I thought it was super helpful to I just put like a big paper on the wall, and I wrote down everything that I needed, and I took a step back and looked at it, and I think it's it's a great tool to get all of your thoughts down and put them into some kind of order and cross something out, because it leaves you a lot of creative room, but in a structured manner. So I think that's probably the best part to start with. I know that people have also provided business model canvases to investors. So I think it is an opportunity, or it is a chance that you could do it. But I would say it's at least from the investors I know and I work with, it's still fairly uncommon to do it. So I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say that most of them are more used to getting a PowerPoint or a Word document that they can read, that they can go through. It's a lot more detailed, so definitely for them, if they really want to dive into your project and understand what you're doing, it's much better for them if they have more details than a business model canvas, which is more high level in most cases. Are there any more questions? You're welcome. So I'm sorry we didn't really get to finish up the later pages. But as I said, you can look them up. I think the link will be posted. So if you want to read over the example that we shortened up a little bit, and also the very last part, you can look that up if you want to. Yeah, I definitely know that they have put the videos up. I would just recommend you to go to the Empowering People Network website, and I'm pretty sure that they put it up. Let me check, maybe I'll find it. I'll look it up for you and post the link here if I find it. Just 1 minute. Yeah, they should make it more obvious, I think, so people can actually find it. Okay, I think I have it. Yeah. So you can try this link. I think it should be containing, yeah, the blog posts are also part of the series, and the webinars. You can see that there's a list of the webinars, and then watch the recording here. I don't know if there's also the presentation on their own, but otherwise you can go through the webinar and then just stop the webinar when on the slide that you need. If you actually need the slides and can't find them, you can also send an email either to Sandra Baumeister or the address that is here put at the end, and I will talk to her that we're also going to put up the slides on the desktop version. if they're not available, I'm not 100% sure, but you can send us an information. Great. If there are no more questions, then I thank you very much for your time, that you stick with me for your questions, and I hope it was relevant information to you, some new information, and something that is hopefully helpful for you in improving your business. Thank you very much. Have a good day.